It was one of those evenings that seemed to carry the weight of the whole week: gray sky, tired faces, and a dull hum of city noise blending into the clinking of plates and soft chatter inside a small roadside diner. Daniel sat at a corner table, his little daughter asleep beside him, her small head resting against his arm. Her hair was messy from the long day, and her cheeks were pale. He gently tucked the blanket around her, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's got you." But truthfully, he wasn't sure he did. The smell of coffee and rain filled the air as the waitress approached with a nervous smile. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair tied in a loose bun, hands trembling slightly as she placed the bill on the table. "Here you go, sir," she said softly, almost apologetically, as if she was sorry for interrupting his silence. Daniel reached into his worn wallet, counting a few crumpled notes, money he couldn't really spare but needed to spend. He paid, nodded politely, and helped his daughter get ready to leave. That's when he noticed it. The change she handed him was too much, almost double. He frowned, about to call her back, when he saw her leaning against the counter, breathing heavily, her hands visibly shaking as she tried to steady a tray. Something inside him paused. He could have just walked away, most people would have. But Daniel had learned through pain that sometimes a small moment of paying attention could change everything. Sparkles if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of noticing someone's pain when no one else does. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps spread stories that matter. Sparkles. Daniel walked back to the counter quietly. The waitress was wiping her eyes when she noticed him standing there. She startled, quickly forcing a smile. I'm sorry, did I forget something?" she asked. Her voice trembled just like her hands. Daniel placed the extra bills gently on the counter and said, "You gave me too much change." She blinked, confused for a moment, then looked down at the money. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "It's just been a long day." Something in her tone hit him like a memory, one of those deep, aching kinds that come from loss. He knew that tone. It was the sound of someone barely holding it together. He wanted to say something comforting, but the right words didn't come. Instead, he just nodded and said softly, "We all have those days. Take care, okay?" He turned to leave, but as he opened the diner door, he heard her quiet sobs. He hesitated, then looked back one more time. She was trying to clean the counter with trembling hands, pretending everything was fine. He sighed deeply and stepped back inside. Daniel asked for a cup of coffee, though he didn't really want one. He just sat there, pretending to scroll through his phone while glancing at her every so often. The diner was emptying out. A few tired truck drivers paid their bills and left, and soon it was just her and him and the sound of rain hitting the window. She wiped tables, swept the floor, and every few minutes, rubbed her wrist as though it hurt. Finally, she sat across from him for a moment to rest, surprised that he was still there. "You're still here?" she asked, half smiling, half exhausted. He shrugged. "Coffee's not bad," he said quietly. Then after a pause, he added, "You okay?" Her lips trembled, and she looked away. "Just tired," she whispered, then after a long silence, "My mom's in the hospital. I've been working double shifts. I can't afford to take time off." She forced a small laugh that sounded more like a cry. "Guess my hands finally decided they've had enough." Daniel nodded slowly. He wanted to tell her he understood. That he, too, was living one paycheck away from collapse. That his daughter's medication and rent bills were a storm he could barely survive. But he didn't say it. Sometimes people don't need you to match their pain, they just need someone to listen. They sat there for a few quiet moments before he left a tip on the table, nothing much, just enough to show he cared, and slipped out into the rain. He carried his daughter to their old car, her small arms clinging to him in her sleep. He didn't know why, but as he drove away, the image of that waitress haunted him. Her shaking hands. Her tearful eyes. Her quiet apology for a mistake that came from exhaustion, not carelessness. The next few weeks were hard. Daniel worked construction during the day and delivered groceries at night. He rarely slept more than 3 hours. His daughter, Lily, had asthma, and her medication cost more than he earned some days. Still, he kept pushing, because he had no choice. But every time he passed that diner on his delivery route, something in him wanted to stop. One night, he did. The lights inside were dim, and the "open" sign flickered weakly. He walked in to grab a cup of coffee, and there she was again. Same tired eyes, same warm but broken smile. "You again," she said softly, almost surprised. He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm becoming a regular." As she poured his coffee, her hand trembled again. He gently reached out, holding the cup steady for her. "You should take a break," he said quietly. She chuckled bitterly. "Breaks don't pay bills." Her words cut through him because they mirrored his own life perfectly. Two people in different battles, but somehow, the same war. He asked her name, she said it was Maya. He told her his, Daniel. Over time, they started talking more. Small conversations turned into late-night confessions, shared laughter, and quiet moments of understanding. He learned she'd been taking care of her sick mother alone since her father left years ago. She learned he was a widower, raising his little girl without help. Sometimes, kindness isn't loud, it's just two tired souls sharing silence and coffee at midnight. Weeks passed. The diner became a refuge for both of them. Daniel started bringing Lily sometimes. She loved the pancakes Maya made just for her. Maya would braid Lily's hair while Daniel watched, his heart quietly filling with warmth he hadn't felt in years. But life, as always, tested them. One evening, Daniel arrived to find the diner closed early. The sign on the door read, "Closed due to emergency." He felt his stomach drop. He called the number on the card Maya had once scribbled for him. No answer. He tried again. Nothing. For the next 2 days, he couldn't stop thinking about her. On the third day, he got a call, from the hospital. A nurse said Maya had listed him as an emergency contact. His heart stopped. He rushed there immediately, fear clawing at his chest. When he arrived, he found her in a small hospital room, pale and weak. Her mother had passed away the night before, and Maya had collapsed at work from exhaustion and dehydration. Daniel stood there quietly, unsure what to say, as tears filled his eyes. She looked up at him and whispered, "I didn't know who else to call." He sat beside her, holding her hand gently, the same hand that once shook while giving him too much change. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "You're not alone anymore." From that day, Daniel made sure she wasn't. He helped her arrange her mother's funeral, picked her up from the hospital, and brought meals when she had no strength to cook. Maya, in turn, helped care for Lily, reading her stories and teaching her to draw. Slowly, something beautiful began to grow out of all that pain. They weren't perfect. They were just two broken people trying to hold each other up. But sometimes, that's all it takes. One evening, months later, Daniel sat at the same diner booth where they'd first met. The lights glowed softly, and outside, the rain drizzled just like before. But this time, Maya sat beside him, smiling gently as Lily colored in her notebook. Daniel looked at her hands, steady now, no longer trembling, and thought about how far they'd both come. How one small act of honesty, one moment of noticing someone's pain, had changed two lives forever. He reached across the table and said quietly, "Funny how it all started with a few dollars of wrong change." Maya smiled, her eyes glistening. "Maybe it wasn't wrong," she whispered. "Maybe it was the universe's way of giving me back what I'd lost." Sparkles, if this story has touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading love, hope, and humanity through stories like this. Sparkles. And before we end, Speech Balloon, tell us in the comments, have you ever had a small act of kindness change your life in a big way? Your story might inspire someone who needs hope tonight. Speech Balloon. As the night deepened, the diner filled with quiet laughter, soft music, and the gentle warmth of second chances. Daniel watched Maya and Lily together, his heart finally at peace. Life had tested him, broken him, and yet, somehow, led him here, to this moment of grace. Sometimes, the smallest mistake becomes the biggest blessing. And sometimes, all it takes is noticing the trembling hands of a stranger to realize that maybe, we're all just waiting to be seen. The end.